I swear this game's atmosphere is something else, even now more than 20 years later. Not to be confused with Project Nomad, the 1993 space exploration game. Project Nomads was the second game developed by Radon Labs, released back in 2002. They also made the Drakensang games, set in the Dark Eye universe, the most popular German pen and paper role-playing game system, even beating Dungeons & Dragons. It was a German company, so of course they also made the obligatory business simulator in the form of Genius, the tech tycoon game, where you start with a bicycle factory and have to answer physics and math questions to research new tech. I'm actually curious to try that one out. It has an interesting premise at least, more so than the horse riding and veterinary games. But let's return to our lonely island and talk about the ambitious blend of genres that is Project Nomads. The world is dead. A terrible war ravaged the planet Ares and led to its complete destruction. The fragments of this world remain suspended across different levels, with a burning inferno raging at the bottom of it. The few surviving inhabitants have settled these floating islands that wander slowly through the endless sea of clouds. We are nomads, engineers with magical abilities that roam the world in search of the ancient artifacts of the lost Master Builder race. During one of these expeditions, we are ambushed by the Sentinels and crash land on a nearby island. Our friends have been captured, and it's up to us to save them. This is where the game begins. Before we get in the gameplay part, there are some fixes we can do. The game had a lot of issues, so you'll want to update to the 1.2 version. If you've downloaded the abandonware copy, then it already comes patched with that. Unless you're sporting a bit fat CRT, in which case massive respect, you'll want the widescreen fix to get rid of the black bars. And there's also a GUI and aspect ratio fix on the same website. It's not perfect, the inventory belt is still in the middle of the screen, but honestly it never bothered me. The mod was also made back in 2020, and it was a shock to me to see that this got any fixes at all, let alone 18 years after its release. The settings page is quite barren, but mouse sensitivity is something you'll definitely want to touch. The game has a magical post-apocalyptical steampunk setting, where the core mechanics are the ancient artifacts and floating islands. The island is our nomadic base we can build up and use against our enemies. Think of it as a grassy aircraft carrier capable of launching fighters, bombers, and various projectiles towards anything hostile. We can't control the island directly. However, using a watchtower, we can fly it to predetermined navigation points. Speaking of artifacts, these floating little things are the remnants of the advanced Master Builder race and an integral part of your success in the game. Using energy, we can use an artifact to construct its building on our island, and there are plenty to find in almost every mission, most of them well hidden from sight. There are two kinds of artifacts. Red and blue ones. The blue ones you can rebuild as many times as you wish, while the red ones are a one-time deal. If the building is destroyed, it won't leave its artifact behind, so you'll want to be conscious of them and keep them repaired. Several artifacts like the energy silos, power plants and turrets have multiple tiers. An artifact press allows you to combine, for example, two level 1 turrets to make a single level 2 one. While you can combine red and blue artifacts, the resulting upgrade will be a red one. This progression system is essential because your island will carry over in the next mission with whatever you've built on it, so you'll want to cultivate a strong battleship for the latter missions. A keen eye to spot artifacts and patience with upgrades will ensure you get to use the best guns in the late game. The game is an ambitious melting pot of genres. You've got a third-person action game where you walk around different islands in search of artifacts. You can build and repair structures on your island, use offensive spells, and, if you find the jetpack artifact, fly around with enormous freedom of movement, Superman style. It's a first-person arcade shooter when you manually control your turrets. It's an action sim when you enter the cockpit of your fighter or bomber, and it has some strategy elements in the way you position your buildings on the island. But as the saying goes, a jack of all trades is a master of none. Or in this case, lacks depth. The controls on foot are clunky, and jumping around feels stiff as you fall back down. There's also this blue flash you get when you jump, and if you hit the angle just right, you get to bask in the light of the backpack. The island doesn't have many slots, 7 for energy buildings or turrets, and 2 airfields, so the buildings you'll have and their positions are mostly set in stone. Turrets in the front, power plants, silos and vault in the back. The magic missile and bomb spells are your only tools when you're off the island, Although I don't like how they take up precious toolbar slots and you can't drop them to make room for an artifact. So you're just forced to sit there and use them up, as tool-built expansions are few and far between. Still, my biggest regret with the game, I'm sad I missed the Project Nomads t-shirts. Only €8. And the fact that we never got a sequel or an expansion, of course. The island buildings are different depending on the chosen nomad, so let's look at our options, starting with Goliath, the warrior. He's the bulkiest of the nomads, clad in armor and equipped with a respirator mask that makes him look like a young Darth Vader. All his buildings have a futuristic feeling, being large metallic constructs, filled with pipes and red energy conduits pulsing constantly. His turrets are giant missile batteries that have the best damage output out of every hero, slow firing but very strong. His plane also uses the same projectiles, so it's all good. John, the engineer. He's got the biggest mustache and his buildings are classic steampunk, flywheels and Gatling cannons. His lighthouse actually looks like a lighthouse. I like the pleasant sound of the engine when we're underway, and the rustic windmill power plants contrast nicely with the sci-fi silo. Sadly, bullets in this game are the worst damage type, so you'll have a harder time knocking down planes and buildings. There's also a bug where it seems like the damage is tied to frame rate, so it will be even worse on a modern system unless you lock it to 60 or even 30 FPS. This affects all his turrets and his plane. And lastly, Susie the magician. She's a bit odd and leans more towards the mystical side with an insectoid aesthetic, the bony lighthouse, butterfly power plant, alien pancake turrets that shoot lasers, and of course the dragonfly plane, stashed in a flower bud. Every time I see this lighthouse, I think of the Marai's wreck nests from the first Blood Rain game. The damage is better than John's, but she's also affected by the FPS curse. So everyone has a portrait next to their health, and it feels like Susie got the short end of the stick. This has to be a placeholder that somehow slipped into production, right? The story is the same, so you can pick the hero that resonates with you most. I went with Goliath, and if you want an extra reason why, he's the only one who doesn't have this horrible screen shake when using the guns. I get that weapons need to have recoil to feel realistic, but I have no idea why it has to shake everything so hard. Our enemies come in two forms. The Sentinels, roving bandits who capture islands, people and artifacts for their own nefarious plans. Their leader looks like a sentient fishbowl, and their arsenal includes various bombs and turrets, planes, bombers, and later on you'll face off against other island fortresses. The Skrit, on the other hand, are the mindless insectoid race that consists of small and medium banelings that explode on impact with the sole intent of choking you with their fart clouds. There are other flying variants, and there's the Queen, but we'll talk about them when we get to the story part of the video. One thing I dislike is how basic their AI is, if we can even call it an intelligence. The enemies will literally spawn around you on predetermined locations and walk forward to you in a straight line, often getting caught on the game's geometry. Ah, that early 2000s jank. The game came out when real-time shadings was a highlight to be put on the inside cover as a selling point. The maps are deceptively empty or rather small, as the main elements of any level are your island in a giant void with a skybox all around you, between 1 and 5 other islands with enemy structures, traps, turrets and hangars, these random floating rocks that break up the horizon, and you can find them in almost every level with the exact same texture. The game does a great job building up the atmosphere, and here are some of my favorite moments. The drab market hub where you return from time to time to upgrade your island, passing through an entrance that reminds me of the Pillar of Kings from The Lord of the Rings. The anticipation as your island slowly crawls to a foggy ravine filled with balloon bombs and turrets. The mini horror sections as you leave the safety of the island to explore on foot the old ruins shrouded in mist, infested with alien bugs trying to eat your lungs. The large-scale battles where the enemy sends endless waves of fighters and bombers to destroy your island. And searching the lowest levels of the world through a maze of volcanoes for the lost battleships of the previous war. It's this contrast between the abandoned ruins from before the war and the industrial factories, cannons and magical elements that give this world its flavor. The models themselves are a bit dated, but where the polygon count failed, they made up in textures and creativity. The Sentinels have these great flying machines with multiple viewports, custom made to steal islands and move them around. But then their leader flies around on an empty canoe suspended by the colon balloon. They could have added a chair at least. Also, the characters are all strange. We meet a few nomads on our journey, and most of them have some kind of breathing mask, cybernetic implants, and strange proportions like they're all mutated or something. And the master builders are all quirky to say the least. Basalt Face looks like an old genie from a magical lamp. Bildan looks like an 80-year-old stuck in a child's body. And Welkin is a rejected Power Ranger villain.
Take us there, Nomad. I'll pilot your island.
The few sections where you're fighting aliens on foot, you'll get to hear this horrible squelching sound, like a bunch of Zerg units got invited to a podcast. Goliath's guns sound great, they feel heavy and powerful, and they also did an amazing job with the Great Cannon. It just feels good to use. The same cannot be said about anything that uses bullets, like John's Gatling Towers or Susie's Weird Pancake. They are pea shooters in every way possible. When it comes to music, this is the best soundtrack ever made. Well, maybe not, but still one of my favorites. This game needs to be remembered for the soundtrack alone. Just listen to some of these tracks. In terms of voice acting, I really like the narrator that accompanies all the missions. It's a sad voice fit for a sad world.
After his many travels. Since then, he'd made a living out of trading artifacts. For the right price, one could get everything there. Or lose everything. However, the once bustling market was now a sorry sight. Gloomy and bare.
Stop. Your island needs a level drive.
The actual characters are hit or miss. Basalt Face feels like he was reading his lines in a random order, as his sentences don't always fit together well.
The first battle is won, Nomad. Now you must destroy the Athenor. Over there, the hangars of the Sentinels fleet, and the attack is drawing close. The Sentinels fleet must be destroyed before it's too late. Only by mounting a surprise attack on Athenor can we achieve victory. Then the Sentinels will be beaten, and we can rescue your friends.
But let's take a look at the story highlights. The game has 24 missions, and it all starts with us crashing down on this lonely island. By pure chance, we free Basalt Face, a master builder who is eager to reward us for releasing him. The Sentinels attack us, and we repel them before heading out towards friendlier clouds. The Grey Market is a hub area we'll return to from time to time. Travaine is an old nomad who settled down here after his many adventures to trade artifacts with other nomads passing through. The master builder is instantly recognized, and it seems that members of his guild carry a lot of respect among the survivors. The area is filled with artifacts we can use for our coming battles. The artifact press can also help us make a tier 2 gun turret, higher range, better fire rate, and it can now attack on its own. Finding the backpack artifact lets us take off and fly around and thoroughly check every corner of this island for loot. The early game has the coolest missions, and I think the Pirate Ravine is one of the best. A nighttime slow drift through a booby-trapped corridor. The auto-targeting on the tier 2 turret works wonders here, so we can take in the scenery. The enemy pilots are the best. Top Gun ace pilots that keep crashing into the environment, my island, and sadly each other. With the morning rays comes an island infested with a Zerg. Oh, I should probably fix that. Here, we must find the offensive and bomb spells to deal with the locals, as they'll keep on spawning from their cartoon alien ships if we don't. When I first played this as a young lad, this foggy spot with the aliens spawning in all around me was a horror section. 23 years later, not so much. Once we take out the big nest here, we're free to explore to our heart's content, and we can move on to our first big battle. We arrive just as the Sentinels are bombing a fellow nomad. We save his island with the help of the large bombard, but one look at his broken knees and it's clear he's done for. We do get our hangar, and once we install it, we've got a safe way of dealing with the enemy without putting our island in danger. We've got an infinite supply of planes, and they handle a lot better than the jetpack, but it still needs some getting used to. It has a strong attack, and we can boost with this hyperdrive effect to cover large distances quickly. Taking out the enemy generators will cause the enemy lighthouse to explode, winning us the mission. Another quick visit to the marketplace for more artifacts and the ramblings of a mad master builder. We continue the war against the Sentinels by attacking the Anator Citadel, a great place for a barbecue. The main thing to watch out for is the large bomber that can one-shot the island if it manages to touch it. Also, while our fighters can't damage the bomber or the hangar with its puny weapon, ramming into them can do wonders as the impact is a different damage type. After yet another stop at the market, we enter what I like to call the second act of the game. Basalt Face tells us of another master builder that imprisoned our friends, the same one who sent him into exile. In order to reach this prison, we need to install a level drive, the only way to change our elevation and reach the lower levels.
Seraphim has been defeated.
We reach the island port, and before we can get the drive from the stretched man, the Sentinels attack once again. The bridge to the island is destroyed, so we use a nearby turret to hold off the enemy waves. Once our island is cleared of turrets, the island movers are deployed, and I just love the way they look. With our island stolen, our only choice is to hide on a small island, letting us infiltrate their base of operations. We get to see their leader, Seraphim, and I'm not going to comment on those proportions. We assume control of Shark 3, and we have to blend in, staying in formation as we fly around the maze of rocks in a training section. Most people hate this mission, as it's easy to collide with the environment or fall out of formation and lose the mission. But I think it's because the game never tells you to press the space key once to accelerate the plane without boosting. And if you play Goliath, you don't have any propellers to notice the speed difference. I always wondered what happened to the real Shark 3. Is he on a really long bathroom break? We don't knock anyone out, so what's stopping him from finding his plane gone and alerting the Sentinels? We also got in right in front of Seraphim, who doesn't suspect a thing. I bet it's because of the yellow fishbowl. The Vortex is a giant cluster of islands and the last bastion of the Sentinels. It's time to take it down from the inside. Fly around in search of 4 generators before taking out the Vortex itself. Some missions in this game are way too short, and this took me about 2 minutes to beat. We land safely back on the Sentinel base, and we take advantage of all the confusion to steal all the artifacts. We have our very own artifact press, and we use it to rebuild the island. We return to the port, and Seraphim goes full Scooby-Doo villain. And I would have gotten away if it wasn't for you pesky, meddling nomads. Things get a bit more interesting as the enemy now has floating islands, but the lighthouses are the only things keeping them together. Seraphim says we'll meet him again, but this is the last time we see him. So unresolved plot point or setup for a sequel, you get to decide. With the level drive installed, we can now pass the ancient Cloud Gate. The Sea of Clouds is another on-foot mission in search of fuel to travel the very long distance to the prison. This is the first time the game mentions anything regarding fuel. I just thought everything ran on magic dust. But we have an abandoned depot filled with platforming sections and bugs to go through. And they're really excited to meet you as they'll glitch like crazy in all directions. The prison of the master builders. We're constantly under attack by mechanical harpies, but we also get our own bomber hangar. Time to make them suffer as I have. The AI is so bad, my own plane rammed into me. Multiple times. We break the prison, meet Bildan, and the mandatory plot twist is here. Basalt Face tricked us. He was evil all along and tried to wipe everyone out by gaining power over the Screed Queen and the whole swarm. After this, we have a bunch of defense missions against the Flying Zerg.
Enough! We have more important things to do.
We meet the Master Builder Welkins at her island. I almost slide into the abyss, and she puts me on a plane to retrieve an artifact cache. This is an impressive fortification, but we are flying a piece of junk that fires bullets. The sanctuary consists of 3 rings that spin in different directions, and we have to blast open the vents to get in. As we've established, Gatling weapons are bugged. Alternatively, you can ram into them, and you will sometimes pass through the gate. Pick up the artifacts, and it's much easier to blast your way out. It's still tedious and bugged, and at times I felt like my bullets were actively healing the vents. Our new plan is to find an ancient battleship of the previous war that got shot down and fell to the lowest level. Here is the maze of volcanoes we have to navigate in order to reach the Colossus. If the island stops for any reasons, you're dead in the water and the next rock volley will take you out. We eventually reach the ship and find Captain Preston, who looks like a Pez dispenser. Good thing there aren't any settlements that need my help around here.
We need your help, Preston.
With the ship in decent condition, we lift it up and escort it through a screed-infested canyon. Taking out the nests and incoming bombers will ensure this big boy won't get sent back down to hell. This is the mission where our planes shine. Launching any plane will cause the other to deploy as well and will follow us in a formation. That makes me anxious every time I try to turn in any direction. The City of Machines is where Basalt Face hides like a coward, behind an impenetrable force field. The Colossus will distract the aliens long enough for us to infiltrate the city. We start with a horrible platforming section. Literally 80% of this game's jank happens when you press the spacebar. At the end, we get a jetpack and the explosive charges we need to plant on the power plant supplying the city. You do need to keep an eye out for the enemy cannons, bugs, and of course, the jetpack range, denoted on this handy gauge on the bottom right. We use charges and cannons to take out all the generators and the control machine taking the force field down. Without it, the Screed Queen can suck off his psychic energy and make him explode.
She's draining my energy. No!
Another bug-infested ravine later, we reach the Queen's Nest. Time for the final confrontation. We shoot down flyers, turrets, and tentacles as we approach the inner chamber of the nest. The SERP guided missile is a great way to deal with the tentacles from a distance, and we take out the Queen by dropping an island on her. With the world safe again, we return to the Grey Market. The Queen and her brood are dead, Basalt Face is dead, and Seraphim is, somewhere I guess. Our character utters his first words in the last cutscene of the game.
No, Travaine. That's not for me. I'm a nomad. I need adventure.
God, he looks like a puppet. So we set out in search of adventure, and the slim hope we'll actually find our friends again. The game launched with a multiplayer mode, but it's dead as a doornail. Still, it had 15 maps where up to 8 players could fly around with their islands, fighting for artifacts and supremacy. Everyone started with the same artifacts to make things fair, and the character picked was just a cosmetic choice. At one point, an Xbox version was in development, and it's a shame it got cancelled as it would have meant more players and eyes on the game. Overall, I feel like the best missions are at the start of the game. By the end, there aren't any new mechanics or surprises anymore. By the time you stop fighting the Sentinel turrets, fighters and bombers, you get to meet the Screed turrets, fighters and bombers. I would have loved more variety in terms of artifacts or a bigger island with more slots. The settings are quite barren, and the accessibility option to disable the screen shake would have made me want to play with Susie and John a bit more. Still, I'm glad I replayed it. 4 out of 5 windmill artifacts. Here are some personal updates. If you're still watching, I assume you might be interested. Work's been crazy in the past few weeks, and since the other RTS projects I'm working on are taking longer than expected, damn you, Para World! So this was the perfect time to sneak in a quick nomadic review. Also, you might have noticed the new channel art. Shout out to Tofui for giving my avatar a form on this mortal plane. There are also a few newer games that came out recently that really caught my eye, and I'd like to talk about them in a review, or maybe an all achievements video. But you need to spend a lot of hours in a city builder or 4X game to have an informed opinion, so naturally it will take longer to make. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.